This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, it was just one of 82, but at times it seems like the Leafs are just addicted to humiliation. It's a Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. Jay, can you believe this show hasn't even been on the airwaves for a week? It feels like an eternity already.
Oh, I can't say that just yet. I haven't been doing it as long as you, and I'm not as jaded living in that city as you are. But no, there's been no shortage of stuff to talk about. And every day that we pump a new show, it's like something wild has been happening. So good for us, I guess.
That's the best thing about this market, my man. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, leave us a review. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest. I had some choice words on last night's performance against the Arizona Coyotes. Speaking of which, Keith Yandle, formerly retired, the NHL's Iron Man, is expected to hop by in about 10 minutes from now. So we'll get his thoughts on his first broadcast here in Canada with Monday Night Hockey. Also, just his thoughts on last night's game, moving forward now into retirement and the broadcasting career. But if you had one word to describe that game last night, Rosie, what would it be? Because I have a lot of them.
Yeah. One word. What would you pick? One word. Frustrating, scrambly, out of options. It's just it wasn't good, man. It's not a good day to be a Leaf. I know the feeling in that dressing room right now. They're all walking into the practice rink and everyone's quiet and kind of just talking quietly at breakfast, and everyone's pissed off. Everyone's walking on eggshells. The coaches are stomping around and no one really knows why it happened, but no one's happy and it's not fun. It sucks. And they're in a bad place
With
right
that in
now.
mind,
But what's that?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, keep going.
Yeah, that's the feeling right now, and it's no good. And like, it's the same feeling with the fans right now. But I promise you, like, no one's suffering more, no one's more pissed off, no one's more frustrated than the actual players and the team itself. And they're for some reason the feeling on Twitter is that these guys don't care and when will they try? And it's just that stuff pisses me off because I'm like, what planet are you on, man? You think these guys don't care? It's their whole life. Every day it's their future, their life, their careers, their families. It all binds on what happens to their hockey. And so they care very much. And they're as frustrated as anybody. I mean, you look at the game and they're trying. It's not in lack of effort, but there's just nothing there. So definitely a frustrating day for everyone in Leafs land.
And that's why you bring context to this show, because, again, you've been in an NHL dressing room, and most of us listening and watching and doing this show have not. With that in mind, let's jump over the boards.
Right on.
Told you so, Rosie. I know you like that headline, that topic number one du jour, a 4-2 win for the Arizona Coyotes. Yes, we all, I expected it. So many layers to this game. Where do you want to start, Rosie?
Just the overall, what's going on. Like, what I notice is out there, they're the better team on paper, going to be a better team by the end of the year. And, it starts, what do you do? You start Kallgren, and it kind of says, well, why don't you start Samsonov? He's hot. He's not overworked. It's game 4. You want to get his feet under him, but they start Kallgren, which in theory, let's get his feet under him. It's a good game to get him in there. Hopefully we get that win, and our boys are due to show up here, and we're going to get that win, and it's just going to be perfect. Then we go back to Sammy against a tough team next game. So in theory, it's right. But then as soon as you do that, it's like, oh, we're starting Kallgren. Like, oh, yeah, well, it's the Coyotes. It's the Coyotes. And it's this subconscious, like, oh, yeah, easy game. And it's the same thing that happened to them game 1 against Montreal, where you're just mentally, no matter what you do and say and prepare, if you in the back of your mind, this is kind of I don't want to say easy win. There's no such thing in the National Hockey League, but it's time to get a win, and it's a good chance to get that win, and you kind of expect to win. And why wouldn't the Toronto Maple Leafs this year expect to win against the Arizona Coyotes? And it is frustrating. But on ice, no one's penetrating the net. Everything's just kind of the outside. They're a perimeter team. Every time they get a shot, there's a stick on it. There's a blocked shot. And if there is kind of a big chance, it's just an individual effort that happened to work out. And I think that, Keefe said it right. He said their big boys have no rhythm, and they don't. I mean, what is your take on Auston Matthews so far and what he's done in 4 games?
I think he's been just okay. But again, the expectation is, and the body of work has just been there with Auston Matthews, that what you're going to get more often than not. That's why he's going to get a pass, right, for X amount of games until he finds his rhythm. I totally agree with Sheldon Keefe. I think it was rather subdued, but at this point, what else is he going to say? I don't want to say he seemed defeated in the post-game presser, because I don't think he's at the Mike Babcock level. I think at the end, Babcock knew his days were numbered as the head coach. I don't think we're at that point just yet. But you can see the frustration coming out of Sheldon Keefe's ears, and the way he was talking about the game, because we've seen this before, Rosie, and I know you're short on this job, but is it crazy that right away when this game started going downhill very, very quickly, they score the first goal. Who else? Nick Ritchie, now 13-27 as a member of the Arizona Coyotes. That ultimately I started to think about the top 10 list of embarrassing losses for this franchise in, say, the last decade. And it was easy, and I mean easy, to come up with 7 or 8 right off the top of my head. It's just really, really concerning that unfortunately this team can't lose normally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And the post-game presser, what do you want the coach to be? He's pissed off, he's frustrated, he knows the wrath that's about to come down on him. But as far as being defeated and whatnot, no, he had a sleep, and you got to park it behind you. You got to leave last night's loss behind. They're going to address it this morning, and they need to have a big practice, and they got a couple days to get some work done, and away you go. But I mean, it's game 4. His days aren't numbered. People on Twitter and on these shows and in the media, they're following the team and dissecting it as closer than the management and the brass are doing. You got to give it some time. And as soon as, Auston Matthews starts stepping up and that first 2 lines starts clicking, the whole world is different and going to change, right? And, things are going to change with this lineup and with this roster all on their own. Guys are going to be coming off long-term IR. I think they're going to make a trade of some kind, maybe a defenseman, maybe an Engvall type player, get them gone, free up 2 point whatever million in cap space. Then all of a sudden you can start playing with the lineup a little bit and getting some guys off long-term IR again. And then it'll be a completely different look. And if they start rolling after that, then this little hiccup of a start will be in the rear view mirror, right? But we're talking as if they're 0-4 right now, where they're 2-2. And do you think other outfits in the NHL right now look at the standings where there's other teams where they're not where they want to be? Are they calling for the head of the GM and for the coach? No, just the Maple Leafs are, because that's what they do. And that's why I really believe that sentiment around the team and the negativity and the constant disgust leads to their play, because whether they follow the media or not, they know that's a sentiment in town, and it's such a big following that the weight of that is felt, and it's so hard to win, and you do grip your stick a little bit more, and you do get a little bit extra frustrated, and people are calling for people's heads early, way too early, and it leads to it. Why else have they not won in 55 years? Why have they not won in 55 years? Why have they not won a playoff series in 20 some? It's why?
You're making excuses. You're making excuses. That's what you're doing right now. You're being a player.
Reason? What's the reason?
They just haven't got the job done, and they choke under pressure. We've seen this a billion times. We've seen this story a billion times, and I think that's why Leafs Nation's just having, no say, or saying enough of this crap, because it's happened so many times. And I totally understand the people out there saying, hey, the regular season doesn't matter at all. I'm with you 1,000%. But it's more so the journey for me. And if you continue to see games like this, surefire wins like this, and you can't find a way, the lackluster performance in the season opener, I think it sets you up for disappointment in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, only time will tell on that front. Topic number 2, the one thing we did notice in the third period, the lines went into a jumbler, of course, and Sheldon Keefe rolls out Kerfoot, Matthews, Marner, Yarncroke, Tavares, Nylander, Bunting, Kampf, Engvall. What did you think, Rosie?
Yeah, definitely mixed him up. I mean, I think he takes heat for not making in-game changes sometimes. Obviously, he did there, but you got to do something. They had nothing the first two periods, and then what if you want to see a silver lining or some light on the game, the third period, at least they found it. Like they were just answering buzz, 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 buzz. That team was on their heels. You could see them going, "Oh man, are we actually not going to win this game?" And it would have been, a big disappointment for them in their locker room after had they not gotten that call that went to Toronto at the end of the game on Riley, which is kind of unexpected, I guess. But they were able to turn it on and find something, so that's a positive at least. But I don't mind mixing up the lines if you don't have anything and you're just spinning your wheels out there, which is what they've been doing, just trying, and just nothing's penetrating and you can't get anything through. Make a change, throw something different out there. All of a sudden, you got a guy doing a little something different on your right side, or you got a centerman who's kind of supporting you in a different way, or whatever the case is. It just mixes it up a little bit, and then all of a sudden, click, and that's hockey for you. It's a fast game of momentum, and you just need something to click, and all of a sudden the floodgates open. So they had a great third period. Too little, too late. They shouldn't have been in that position. Absolutely. But it's nice to see that a couple changes did change something, and whether they stick with that or not, I'm sure it's not going to be the way they started the last 3-4 games. It'll be something different like that.
I thought the power play stunk up the joint last night. I think it goes without saying Nick Robertson will make his season debut coming up on Thursday. And it's important to note Jake Muzzin leaves this game. And the other thing I should mention that's not really being talked about, A, the Yarncroke penalty that leads to the Gostisbehere game-winning goal, and B, just the heinous giveaway by Justin Hall after being the hero on Saturday. That was brutal. Like, it was absolutely brutal. And Hall's had a really, really tough start to this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I mean, I know he got that goal there that was big, but aside from that one play where he gets his stick on a puck and it goes in, great for him. It was great to see. I'm sure he had some little shot of confidence or thank God I did something good here, but then right back to normal. I mean, I was watching him wheel that net, pick it up on the half wall, and just chuck it, like just toss it. He could have turned his back and ate that for a second and waited for some support. Try to go glass, hit the brakes and glass it, and just a whiffer right up the middle. And in that league, when you do that, and I've done it before, it's in the back of your net every single time. And it's just a terrible look. Like, you're an NHL defenseman, man. You can't be making those panicky plays right through the middle, just desperately trying to get the puck off your stick in a key time in the game. So a really bad look for him. I don't like to rag on one individual guy,
Yeah.
but let's be honest, he hasn't done anything but be a liability besides that one good goal. So hopefully he finds his game or something changes, because that was ugly.
Let's, yeah.
What, like, yeah, your thoughts?
No, I was just going to say we can get to our guests. We'll go deeper into this one now with the NHL's all-time Ironman, new NHL broadcaster, the recently retired Keith Yandle. Keith, thanks so much for hopping on. I know it's been a busy last 24 hours. What was last night like for you?
Yeah, it was fun. It was, just to see that whole setup that they have there was pretty cool. It was, you know, they have everything dialed in there. It seems to be like everything's going to be a lot of fun with all like the green screen stuff. We didn't do too much with it last night, but I think down the road it will be a lot of fun.
You killed it, man. You're an absolute natural, and Rosie's recently new to the broadcasting scene as well, so you guys have that in common. But what did you make of last night's debacle? Is it too harsh to call it a debacle from the Leafs perspective?
Well, I mean, not if you're a Toronto fan. Like, you guys, you need stuff like this to talk about, right? It's kind of one of those things where, it's still early in the season. You hate to see a team, not like I was hoping that they won that game. I still think that the puck might have hit, was it Clayton Keller's foot?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I thought, I mean, it would have been nice to go to overtime. Obviously a game they probably should have won, but it's still real early in the season. And I mean, what they said, that the Coyotes haven't lost there since 2002. So, I mean, sometimes you just got to chalk it up that you might lose that one.
You're part of some of those teams as well. We know with the Phoenix Coyotes at the end, with the Arizona Coyotes. You're not far removed from this league, Jens. I mean, what is said amongst the players, if anything, when teams like the Leafs have embarrassing losses? Say to a Zamboni driver, or losing a 5-1 lead to the Ottawa Senators. Like, there's a laundry list of episodes in recent memory. Is this spoken about around the league?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it happens to every team. It's just probably a little more blown up because the media and everything up in Toronto. But I think it happens to every team. Throughout an 82 game season, a couple of years, like the everything you're going to see everything happen, whether it's a blown lead or losing to the Zamboni driver. That one was talked about a little bit because it's just good fun. But yeah, other than that, I think everything you see throughout the league, and I don't think anyone's really talking about one team when it comes to something like that.
Fire away, Rosie.
Yeah, and just wanted to ask you, like, playing as long as you played, and you grew up on Coney Island. It says Boston, Mass, but wasn't it? We grew up on Coney Island or something like that.
Who said that? Scott Lawton?
Yeah, probably. Sounds like a nice town to me, anyway. Anyhow, you played as long as you did, and I mean, from the time you're a teenager, you're living for the team that you play for. You're living in that town. That's your home, and you did that for so long. Nice, you get a pretty good stint in Florida and long time stint in Arizona, which are pretty good places. But what was it like when it comes to an end? And a lot of guys have the feeling that their identity is a hockey player, and if you don't put a lot of thought into time after that and life after that, all of a sudden that's gone. You're never going to play a hockey game again. You're never going to be on a hockey team again. All of a sudden that's gone, and some guys really struggle with that transition. Take us through, for you, when you decided to retire, and what that was going to be like. Did you always think about media coming down the barrel when you decided to retire, or was it kind of a process of feeling out what you're going to be now that you're done being a professional hockey player?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a adjustment. Obviously, I think I knew last year, probably halfway through the year, that that was going to be it for me, and just the way everything was going, just the love of the game. Obviously, still love the game, but it's just kind of the fire that you have to come to the rink every day that was kind of lost a little bit. So I think for me, I knew I was fine with it. I was happy with it. I was happy with my career. Obviously, very blessed to be able to play in the NHL as long as I did. So, very, very grateful for that. And then, looking into this, I took the whole summer off. I was like, I'm not going to do anything, talk to anyone about anything, just kind of play it out. And then, I know I wanted to stay in hockey. I want to, whether it's down the road, get into management or something like that. But I know for right now, my kids are still young. I want to be around to be able to drive them to school and pick them up and take them to sports, and because you miss out on so much during your career, right? So for me, it was just kind of get my feet wet in the media and see what I can do there and have some fun with it.
You just a member at Paradise Valley, just membership and just soaking it up, or what?
No, I'm in Florida.
Oh, you are, hey?
So probably
Florida. A couple nice golf clubs around there too, I imagine.
Yeah, there's plenty of good golf around here, and I've been trying to play like 3 or 4 times a week now, so that's been nice.
Nice.
Just wanted to jump in on the conversation with the Leafs last night as well, and congratulations on a phenomenal career, by the way. You absolutely killed it, now killing it in the broadcast world. Austin Matthews, like, do you ever envision a scenario where he's like, I'm done with this shit, I'm out of here?
I mean, obviously I can't speak for him, but I would say, I mean, you could. I bet it all depends on how this year goes. If they make the jump and get past the first round. But he seems like a guy that's so invested in that team. Those guys have all kind of came up together. They seem like a tight knit group. So I can't really see him pull and shoot like that. But at the end of the day, if something comes up, you never know what's going to happen. Guys go to different teams all the time, and you can't blame a guy, or whether it's a trade or sign somewhere, you can never blame a guy or an organization. It's just part of the business.
Well, Keith, congratulations on your debut last night. Really, really appreciate you taking some time today, man.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime. That is Keith Yandle, the NHL's Iron Man, joining us here on Leafs Morning Take. And just a really good perspective too, right, Rosie? The fact that you as well, being a former player, but he's not far removed from this league, and he's been there before, and he's been playing this Leafs team, right?
Oh, he's done it all, man. A career like his, he's played forever. He's seen it all, done it all, and he knows what's going on. And you can tell, by his perspective, it's early. Like you got to relax. You can't freak out. Like the highs can't be too high and the lows can't be too low. And he's like he said, it's early. It's 4 games in. You dropped one that you should have dropped, but sometimes you just chalk it up to that's a crazy thing, and you got to move on, because if you don't, how are you going to get better? How are you going to not have more of those games? You got to move on and work on what's wrong and fix it and try to make it not happen again. But you're sitting there dwelling on it, bitching like we/you do. We got to
Me,
you
yeah.
got to try to move on.
I certainly have. I've been yearning for perspective in my life. I always jump to social media and Twitter, following losses like that, and just air my grievances. I just think it was unacceptable, but I understand the long scheme of things as they started off the show. It's 1 of 82. Yeah, it stinks because it's the lowly Arizona Coyotes. They play in a college barn, but that's beside the point. Everything's okay. Everything's fine and dandy. No sarcasm here in Toronto. No, I'm not buying that shit at all. Anyways, it's time to get to the wrap-up, brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. I don't know if you saw, Rosie, another hot start to the week. John Tavares picks up that anytime assist, so we're going to roll on that tonight. I'm going to look at the Ottawa Senators home opener. They're at home to the Boston Bruins in the back-to-back. This is coming in at around minus 121. It's the home opener. It's a Bruins back-to-back. High expectations for the Ottawa Senators. Give me the Senators on the money line tonight, because I think they need this one badly, even though it's really early on in this season.
Yeah, not a bad pick. I'm not arguing with anything you're doing lately. You haven't missed the mark yet, which, as we all know, if you like to throw a couple bucks on sports betting, that is not a guaranteed thing by any stretch of the line. But so far, you've been doing the player props and nailing every single one of them. But yeah, I don't mind the Sens tonight. Like you say, they're going to be desperate. They're going to need a win. And, the Bruins haven't been doing as solid as they could. So yeah, not a bad placement right there. I wouldn't turn against you right now when you're on fire.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. And I'll be the first to tell you when I'm cold, right? I'm riding a hot streak to start this season. So I would say tail Nick Alberga right now, but I will tell you when it's time to fade any of my picks here on the show. Just not yet. We're feeling really, really good about some of our bets early on. Many thanks to PointsBet Canada for that. So Rosie, as we look ahead, I think the blessing in disguise for this Maple Leafs team, they got a couple days to dwell on things, some practice time. Who knows what songs they'll play with the DJ in practice, because they love to play the big speaker at practice now back the last couple of years. But they get set to host the Dallas Stars, game 4-4 in this 4-game homestand coming up on Thursday. I think it's fair to say Nick Robertson will play, and it's always fun when you play your brother Jason Robertson, who's an absolute star for the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember growing up collecting hockey cards, and you'd look for those NHL brothers ones, and me and my brother would try to see how many of those we could get. Pretty wicked. So those boys are doing that. That's always a big deal, and I wouldn't doubt at all that he would be playing in that game. They'd inject him in there. He deserves it. Just a little bit of youth, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of maybe FU that I wasn't on the roster in the first place. I expect him to be firing, and they need something, man. That's a really good team over there with a really good goalie. And I mean, I'm just sitting here waiting for the big boys to fire it up, and we can talk about that later on. But they're going to need something, and I think you're right. There's going to be a few lineup changes, and that's all you can do when the team's just not going. Is they've given it 4 games. It's not really going the way they should. So mix a few things up and see if you can shake something loose.
Again, we want to hear from you in the chat here live on YouTube and social media. If you want to chime in on all things Leafs, how the first week has gone, are we being too crazy with our analysis? More so myself, please chime in at this point in time. We can bring it up, your grievances here on air. But certainly, I think moving forward to Thursday, Nick Robertson. And again, I'm very curious as to the status of Jake Muzzin. It's been a rough start. He's been really, really banged up, I would say, the last year and a half, pretty much ever since joining the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I understand he plays that physical brand, but I think it could be a good thing for Jake Muzzin to get a bit of rest and relaxation, if you will, and reset, because that pairing has had a dreadful, dreadful start to this season. Again, Justin Hall, tough giveaway, and I would expect maybe Victor Mete to make his Maple Leafs debut if Muzzin can't go on Thursday night, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, just the way Muzzin fell down, man, like he turns into a guy, and that's always a shock when you have no time to brace or anything, and you just completely come to a complete stop and are looking the other way. And I understand it's a neck injury, but the way he was laying, like when you lay on when you're on the ice and you're laying and his like hand is flat on the ice and like wide, it's just like it's like, man, he is really, really hurting like that. Whatever happened was not feeling good for him, and he leaves. And so I think he could take a couple of nights off and figure out whatever's going on with him. Hopefully he's not, having something that's going to bug him all year long, but I don't mind breaking up that D pairing however you got to do it right now, because it's just it's been too costly. It's been a liability. So, throw someone with Halsey who can maybe, protect him a little bit more and complement him maybe a little bit better, and see what happens.
Tell you something, the Dallas Stars have been one of the better stories to start the season, at least from a positive from their point of view. 3-0 out of the gates. They beat up on the Winnipeg Jets on Monday night. They beat Nashville in the first 2 games. So Pete DeBoer is going to have that team ready to play, and a lot of local products on that roster. What's with former players and also guys who are just from the Toronto area coming back and just pulverizing the Leafs? It happens like every year. It's pretty crazy.
Well, think about it. Like, it's such a big hockey market. So many players come from that Ontario area, and the only time they really get to be actually a part of it, if they don't play for the team, is when they come and play. And they got mom and pop in the stands, and they got people watching them, and people are, they're going out for dinner the night before the game with friends and family, and it's a big night for them, and they know that all the eyes from the people that they care about in their life are on them that night. They're not playing in Florida, they're not playing, and it's not a regular night for them. They're fired up, and they're going to want to bring it, right? And it's just unfortunate for the Leafs that so many players in the league come from that area, and that was their team growing up, and that's who, their parents always dreamt about going to, the Scotiabank Center now, and watching their kid play. So it's a big night for people, and it's unfortunate that always has to be against the Maple Leafs. But like you said, time and time again, guys come in and have big nights against the Leafs, which is kind of just another shitty thing to tack up about playing for that organization if you're talking
Pretty
about the
much.
negative.
Pretty much. And as we get closer and closer to puck drop on Thursday, we'll continue to tee that game up. Certainly a lot to build off this disappointing loss. But again, grand scheme of things, Rosie, it's just 4 games, right? On to game 5 on Thursday, I guess.
You get Matthews fired up and doing his thing, and everything will change, man. We just got to wait for that to happen. Hopefully Thursday.
Well, you brought it today. Thank you so much for rationalizing everything, because, again, I'm just the person who comes head over heels into every episode following a loss, but especially against Arizona. Like, don't get me wrong. We talked about this yesterday, how it was your classic trap game, and it pretty much lived up to expectation. But the Yotes have just dominated Toronto over the last, 20 years, as Jans brought up, right?
I'm not saying you were wrong. You called it, and you knew it, and you've seen that movie before, and you were right. Like, there's no doubt about that. I'm not saying you're wrong. And is it an okay loss? No. Is it acceptable? No. Is it just the shittiest thing they could have done that day? Yes. And it's just about, where do you go from here? So what do you do about it? What's your reaction to that? And typical Leafs fans is just moan and groan, and rightfully so. That's all they've had to do for years and years. But my thing is, what are you going to do? Are you part of the problem or part of the solution? And keep things in perspective. It is an 82 game season. It is a full year. It is just like the first week of the season, and we are losing it. So try to keep things in perspective. No one's happy about losing to the Coyotes, and no one's happy about the way they're clicking right now. But all you can do is chalk it up and move on to the next one and try to fix the problems, which they're trying to do right now. And, I think in their, luckily for them, they're going to be able to mix up the lineup, which they needed to do. And it doesn't look like a desperation move on Keefe's part, because guys have gone down and gotten hurt. They had to activate guys and bring guys up. And it's kind of a natural thing to mix that lineup up. And usually when you get into a funk like that, where there's no rhyme or reason why you don't have it going, it's a lineup change that can snap you out of it. So hopefully that's the case. We'll find out.
We're breeding mediocrity in this market. That's what we're doing. We're just giving this team a pass. We're giving the Blue Jays a pass, whatever. Everything's fine and dandy. We'll leave it at that for today, Rosie. Excellent job. We'll talk tomorrow.
Right on, buddy. See you then.